I want you to kind of talk a little bit about, being an owner with a really difficult dog and like what that was like.
Ugh, I feel like I'm like tearing up right now.
Yeah, sure.
Of just remembering the stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like taking me to a moment.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in therapy.
I get it. I'll share.
So,
you can
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, like, I could share firsthand experiences. Like we did a podcast episode on fighting dogs, and I shared a story of mine with Vera and Deli, the two pit bulls that you met downstairs, right?
Yeah.
So those two dogs, one was my wife's dog, one was my dog, right? And those two dogs, when we first met each other, they literally, not even exaggeration, almost killed each other.
That's
like
scary.
They got in two of the gnarliest fights you could ever imagine. And the scariest part about it was I wasn't even home when they happened, right? It happened for Kate, right? And she had to break it up. And then she called me absolutely freaking out, right? Like, oh my God, like, I don't know what to do right now. Like, we got to get these dogs to the emergency vet, this, that, right? And like, I could even sit here and like, I'm really good at, suppressing emotions, right? It's a great trait of mine where I can really bottle it up and let it just like wait until it simmers over the top in some redirected way somewhere else in my life.
Yeah. I like to use the dog trainer. I'll redirect.
Yeah. But like, I could also distinctly feel the emotions of like when I received that phone call from her. Of like telling me what happened and like just how like terrified I was in that moment, right? And that's an extreme example, obviously, but like looking at living because those were like isolated incidents, obviously, but like looking at perpetually feeling anything even remotely close to like this is so out of control and I don't know what to do and this is a safety risk, like that is like something I feel like people don't realize is like what is literally going through your client's head in a lot of cases, Yeah.
And I think of a specific instance now. I mean, I don't have a stellar memory. I'm trying to be actually better about that. But if there are these moments, I guess, that do stick out in your head. And one of them before training was we were in New Hampshire, traveling with my family, and I was like, I want to bring the dog. We couldn't have her at the condo, so I found a boarding facility nearby. I was terrified.
Yeah.
I basically stayed as organized as possible. I tried to keep it really, really simple for them. I was very clear on she's just nervous. Like at that point, I wasn't worried she was going to like attack and really hurt somebody. I just knew that she was nervous and apprehensive. She would warm up to people and be very, just have one person handle her. Don't give her lots of just let her be. And I came up with, I would pick her up from there and take her on hikes with us. Cause they were like, yeah, that's fine. I was like, we're nearby. Do you mind if I pick her up? We go on a hike together. So I took her on a hike with us. And at that point I had her trained on a gentle leader. I think the prong collar came after, but I started with a gentle leader and she did really well on it. And so I was walking her on a gentle leader and we were trying to cross a path and the space was tight. Oh yeah. And this woman let her dog shove its nose into her nose and she gave a correction. Honestly, she gave an appropriate like, Rah!
Yeah, sure.
And the woman, she walks away. That dog I can see why it's wearing a muzzle. That dog bit her in the face. Yeah. And I'm like, it's not a muzzle. It's a gentle leader. Yeah. I'm trying to be a responsible owner and walk my dog appropriately. Yeah. And your dog invaded my dog's space. I just didn't see it coming. And that moment, I was just so anxious and so stressed. And like, again, here's somebody where my pit bull just bit another, according to that woman, my pit bull bit her dog. So that stressful, those moments, every time it was the vet, every time I had to, if I was leaving anywhere, the anxiety of like, who is taking care of her?
Sure.
The instructions, I would write out the most basic, do not veer from the instructions. And I was living in like, just try to set her up so that she didn't fail because I knew it wasn't her fault. So it was a lot of anxiety and I'm naturally an anxious person. Yeah. And actually, you know what was interesting too is I've always been I was a very shy child, like shy, anxious in general, of like safety first. But my curiosity, I feel like, helped me escape that because I was more curious than I was anxious or fearful.
Yeah.
And getting curious about her and also having to advocate for her as an owner. Before I was even a trainer, I was like, don't you dare do that to my dog. Like I protect her. I don't really care what I cared what people thought, but I cared about her more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was huge for me. Yeah.
That last thing you said is really important. You care what people thought, but like you care about her more, because like that's something. One difficult thing we see with clients all the time is their ability to properly advocate for their dog, like whether it's out on the walk, like getting people to stop coming up and petting the dog, right? And telling people no, or like advocating in the house if they have a fearful dog and they have those couple friends that come over that just like to bug the dog constantly, like feeling confident enough in like, I care about my dog a lot more than how you feel about this situation, to be able to advocate and step in and just tell people no sometimes, and that can be really challenging, especially if you're an individual that struggles with anxiety, right? Or
just being a nervous or like a shy person,
or
of
being
a non
shy.
outspoken.
Yes. Being
You're
a
just
little
like,
too permissive.
I don't want to upset anybody with what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I will be very honest. It is a lot easier. When I said I was interested in relationships always, it is a lot easier and a more simple relationship with a dog than with people.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's kind of like training wheels for like advocating, speaking up, and like eventually people are more difficult. People are more difficult. Dogs are simpler. I feel like my growth has been realizing that like the dog relationship can teach me a lot about how to improve the people relationship.
Yeah.
And how to be a little bit better with people and communicating and being clear and setting boundaries, but it's still tough.
Well, you could see firsthand with a dog how important it is and how simple it can be if you just communicate clearly, right? So I think by witnessing that firsthand, that could help you be that way, just bigger picture.
Yeah. I try to apply it to more things now.
Yeah. Cool.
Boy. I just thought of something.
What'd you think of?
My own version.
How's that mic feeling, by the way?
Feels great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not as good as our regular ones.
It's not as sexy as the other one.
It's not as sexy. I've been downgraded. But like these moments that like, I guess more of like how yours was like, we need to do something. Like how I met him.
Really?
I mean, we knew each other from music stuff, but we hadn't really talked. And then, he knows my ex-fiance and I, we had 2 dogs.
Okay.
And he'll always have a special place in his heart for the one, I'm sure.
One of the dogs.
Yeah, the reason that we came to him in the first place was we always had to keep the one dog away from anything, right? Kind of the same issues that your dog was having.
Yeah.
But the other one loved dogs. So we had some friends that had another little pitty, and they would play together, and they were like boyfriend, girlfriend, like loved each other. But the one time that they had come over, we had the other dog outside so they could play inside, and he was in the backyard. Well, we had the windows open, and it's just the screens, right? And they were like over it by the window, and the breakfast nook area was like really low, like the windows were low. And then all of a sudden we just hear a commotion, and I look in, you hear, and we see the other dog. He had halfway through the window, was stuck in the window doing this, like trying to get at them because he just didn't like any other dogs, And that was the wake up moment, because it was like in front of our friends, their dog was right there, like could have been real bad if he'd gotten all the way in. And we were like, oh shit, okay, we can't just, hide the problem anymore.
Yeah.
So
that's a great way to look at it, is you were hiding like
literally
all these things of like, we'll just keep the dog in the house, right? Like that's all you're doing. Like to everybody, you're hiding the problem at that point. And you're managing it. And it's like, yeah, like at some point something's going to fail.
Yeah. And it did. And then we were like, yeah.
And that's, it's funny. We laugh about something like that, like now, but it's like at the time, like I'm sure that was like actually terrifying to you guys. Because like one, it's like, what if this dog gets through and we have this, I mean, because they were big ass dogs. Like what if we have this giant dog fight on our hands? Or two, like he's breaking through the screen. Like he's halfway through it. Like what if he like severely cuts himself open or like, you know what I mean? Like, there's an infinite amount of like scary situations that could play out from that.
Yeah. And my friends never brought their dog back over, they were traumatized forever. And I get it.
Did they play it real cool though? They're like, okay. Yeah, exactly. No, it's fine. Is he okay? Is everything okay? It's like, actually, we're never coming over this
we're
house.
never coming back ever again. They never came back as long as we were together there. Yeah, no. But I mean, I could understand, you bring your dog over and everything's fine like the first 3 or 4 times. And then that time you're just like, what the what's going on, So those eye-opener moments though are like what changes your experience with dogs pretty much anyway, or like how you used to do things. You're like, that doesn't work anymore,